Hashtag Verse TV week 138. Hey, all right. So the first card, and the order is going to be me, just like that. An off keyless arpeggio. I know, y'all. I'm a music minor, but I probably used that term incorrectly. It just felt right. Okay. Anyway, all right. So the first card topic is if your SO significant other presents you with a prenup before your wedding, would you sign it? Why or why not? So, and I write down my answers in advance so I don't just go off forever. But in this case, since it's just me, I can go off a little bit longer than normal, but not too much longer. Anyway, if they presented me with a prenup before the wedding, now the way that the question is worded, when I first saw the card, I was like, heck no, not if they present it right before the wedding, but if they're just saying before the wedding, as in a a reasonable amount of time before the wedding, like not on the like if they on the wedding day say, hey baby, I love you forever or until next Thursday, but I need you to sign this. Like that's enough. That's enough. But if it's something that we discussed before the wedding, in preparation for the wedding and stuff like that, I think that I would be open to it because as much as it can feel like, hey, I don't want to sign a prenup because it's like preparing for divorce. Yeah, I get that. It is preparing for that possibility, but it is a possibility. And statistically, it's a pretty high possibility. So if either one of the partners has substantial equity, substantial money somewhere, and they, because that's another thing. Because as much as it's like, well, I promise I'll be reasonable, at the end of the day, if you get the right lawyer and the right judge, you could end up taking a lot from the other person. So I get it. You know, you would want to have that stuff established in advance. This is something you're not going to get. It's a pre-marriage thing. So I'm for it, you know. If it's appropriately before the marriage. Again, if you present it on wedding day, like I need you to sign this before we say I do, then I don't. Period. Okay. So next topic. What did your biggest mistake cost you, and what did you learn from it? I really wanted to talk about this because I hope that it helps somebody. Okay, so I yeah, you know, I was kind of a late bloomer. I started off being an early bloomer on the coming out, world and living your truth world, and then I regressed. Okay, so there have been times that Biddy shorts. You know, don't you love autocorrect? But there was this dude, for example, who he was actually really into me, and he was fine. He was gorgeous, short, thick, dark chocolate. And my thing, while I was trolling his Facebook, because when you date somebody, you have to troll all of their photos. And while I was trolling all of his photos, I saw that in some of his photos, he wore booty shorts. Now his legs were fine. He was fine. But in some of his photos, he wore booty shorts. And because I wasn't comfortable enough with myself at the time, I was like, ooh, I can't date a dude who sometimes wears booty shorts because that would make it obvious that I'm gay. Like, that takes me back. Because I remember when I was first entering the world of gay dating or same gender loving dating, same gender dating. The big thing and this is the early 2000s, the big thing that a lot of dudes would talk about is how they want a dude who they can hang out with, and even though they're dating and they're romantically together, they can look like just two friends kicking it, you know? And the dude who wore the booty shorts, like that, I felt like that would be a little not just seeming like friends kicking it, because it would seem like, and this is how I thought back then. I know people, I know, especially my Gen Z people, adults, I get it. People think differently now, and that's a beautiful thing. But that's not how I thought back then, because I was like, oh, he's in booty shorts, and if I hang out with him, on a date or something, it would be obvious. And that's so interesting because like that's the train of thought, and it really just like what anyway. But yeah, so that was part of my thing. And ultimately giving, yeah, ultimately giving outside forces undue precedence in my relationships. And that sometimes outside forces can love you and have your best at heart. And if they're like, he's abusive, he is physically hurting you, you need to get out of that, then that's a different situation. But as far as outside forces being like, you're a homosexual, I don't like that, pump the brakes, okay? Pump the brakes, not your business at all. Anyway, okay. The next card is, I remember this. From 1 to 10, how would you rate your sexual prowess and why? So, I I wrote the answers down in Vance. I wrote them down in Vance. Courtney B. Vance. I wrote them down in advance. And I gave myself a 5 out of 10. And in spite of the fact that just last week, well, on the last show, I mentioned how part of my deep seated sexual fantasy back in the day, not so much right this minute, but I used to fantasize that a loving pimp, I give him a whole background story, but a loving pimp would control my sex and just make me do all sorts of stuff. So, in spite of that, I realize while I might feel like or think like I have a high sex drive, when it gets down to, when you get right down to it, I don't think I'm that great at sex. I don't think I am an excellent lay. I'm not. Um, and it could be like, oh, well, it's because of the whole MS thing and the fact that you use the walker. Outside of that, I will be honest. I don't think that I am that great. That's why I gave myself a 5. Now, I was going to give myself a 3. But one thing that I do that I read about as I was first entering the